a Boeing 747, had to make an emergency landing. After the plane caught fire, the cargo aircraft of the Khalida Company was landing in the United Kingdom from Germany when a great roar was heard and flames could be observed in one of its engines. Just at the scene was the local observer, Tony Johnson, who was waiting for the arrival of another plane. While capturing the moment with his camera, as a witness to the incident, Johnson shared the images with the media and said that a loud explosion was heard while the giant landed, a statement which fits with the theory of bird ingestion or a foreign object. Jet engines suck up large amounts of air, and sometimes the fan blades can suck birds out. In an event known as a bird crash, fortunately, modern jet engines are designed to be able to digest these objects without causing major engine failure. Number 9, Southwest Airlines 1248 was landing from Baltimore when he goes off the track during a snowstorm. The plane landed on the runway, but could not brake in time and went through a protective fence and then a perimeter fence to a stop at the intersection of 55th Street, outside the airport property. The giant stopped right on top of a vehicle with a family of 5 people inside. The reason for the collision was that the pilots did not use the reverse thrust in the correct way to slow down and stop the aircraft after landing, which resulted in an overflow of the runway. Number 8, the DC Douglas III rose about 900 feet in height and went into a sharp left turn before gradually descending and landing again on the same track 4 minutes after takeoff. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The reason was the loss of engine power. During the ascent, the plane fell to the ground with the landing gear still undeployed. Nevertheless, the witnesses said they had never seen an emergency landing before. As quiet as that. Number 7, one DHL cargo aircraft crashed at the Juan Santa Maria International Airport in Costa Rica. The Boeing 757-200 was on his way to Guatemala when it suffered a failure in the hydraulic system, which caused an emergency landing. Minutes after takeoff, the crew notified air traffic control of mechanical problems and were able to make an emergency landing at the same airport. Everything went well, but seconds after landing, the plane made a sharp turn and split in two. The tail of the plane came off and one wing broke. Emergency services used poison to prevent a fuel spill and built an earth barrier to keep fuel out of the drainage system. DHL reported that pilot and a co-pilot, the only crew members on board, were unharmed. Number 6, one Boeing 737-200 Aerosuker Colombia was on a cargo flight from Mitu to Colombia. Minutes after takeoff, the plane had to return to Mitu and make an emergency landing on track 20 because the front door opened during the flight. The door remained attached, but completely open for most of the flight. Captain July Consuegra was fired when trying to assess the damage to the aircraft. The director was Fernando San Clemente, the same who later became ambassador of Uruguay, and it was discovered that he had 3 radiation laboratories. Number 5, aircraft engine failures occur almost all the time. United Airlines Flight 328 marched from Denver to when it suffered a major engine failure shortly after takeoff. The Boeing 777-200.1 total of 240 passengers on board suffered a fire in his right engine. Still shortly after takeoff, and debris fell from the sky about different suburbs of Denver. Thanks to the excellent work of the pilots, the plane landed back in Denver just under 20 minutes after takeoff, and fortunately no one was hurt. An interesting twist in history is that the replacement aircraft that United used for these passengers was one 777-200, who had already suffered a very similar incident a few years ago. Because of this, a class action lawsuit was filed against United Airlines. Number 4. One Boeing 737-800 of Royal Hermarock Company operated a domestic flight to Utah, but landed immediately after takeoff because of a glow of fire in one of its engines. The crew to resist reverse push and stop the aircraft on the runway as quickly as possible. There were no injuries. The Secretary did not comment on the incident, nor the Civil Aviation Authority of Morocco. It is not yet known whether the aircraft was evacuated or if the passengers disembarked through the customs. Number 3. Unabasa 320-200N of Spirit Airlines was about to make a flight from New Jersey to Fort with 105 passengers and 7 crew members on board. But during acceleration to take off from runway 31, the crew rejected takeoff and notified the control of a bird's impact on one of its engines. The aircraft reduced speed from 60 knots and stopped on the runway about 500 meters from launch. The tower built if the aircraft needed help, to which the crew responded, requesting an evacuation of passengers according to standard operating procedures. 3 passengers and 1 crew member suffered minor injuries as a result of the evacuation. Number 2, more than 240 people on board a Singapore Airlines flight, direction Milan, escaped certain death following a failure in one of the engines, approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes after takeoff. The aircraft received an emergency alert that forced him to return to the airport. The captain reported an engine oil leak and decided to return at low speed and power to the airport from which he had departed. During landing, the oil filtered along the right wing, and Oliver and the engine started to catch fire. Passengers had an agonizing 5-minute wait until the firefighters arrived and sprayed the plane with oxygen and water. The fire was extinguished in 5 minutes, and in the photos you can see how the wing looked like, blackened and melted by the flames. Number 1. For moments of terror, those experienced by the crew members of this Boeing UPS 767 that partially caught fire. After taking off from El Dorado Airport in Bogota, Colombia, the incident caused the temporary closure of the airspace. To the crew's call for help, to the control tower. In spite of everything, the crew members were forced to stay in the air for approximately 1 hour. The pilot was to stabilize the aircraft and save time until the airway personnel runway cleared for landing. On the other hand, Colombian Civil Aeronautics authorities detailed that it was a cargo aircraft bound for the United States and that the incident was due to engine damage. In the same way, reported that the cargo she was carrying and the crew suffered no damage.